All right, hey, what's up, y'all? This is Paul C. Tiarina, nutritional therapy practitioner, lifestyle and performance coach with the SHT here in Las Vegas, and I'm here today with the beautiful...
Delancey Prince. I'm a clinical dietetics student, and I've also worked a little under a year at Sur La Table, working in cookware and knives.
Cool, yeah, so today we're talking about choosing a knife, and Sur La Table, what is that for people who aren't familiar with it?
Sur La Table is like a kitchen retail store, but they also do at certain locations cooking classes, which is really cool. That's where I worked as a kitchen assistant under a few really well-trained chefs. They're kind of like a Williams-Sonoma. They're on the higher end of kitchen retail.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And a lot of good expert advice, and we'll
Yeah.
talk about them here in just a moment. So we want to talk today about choosing a knife. We feel like the chef's knife is one of the most important pieces of equipment in the kitchen, if not the most important piece, right?
Absolutely.
Because
yeah.
it's the thing that you're going to be using on a daily basis as a real foodie, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So remember, one of our foundational principles is simplicity and elegance. So we want to keep things very simple and easy. And what we see a lot of people doing is getting these huge, massive, really inexpensive, sometimes a little bit more expensive, but knife sets that
Yeah.
have all kinds of different types of knives, and people just don't know what to do with it, and it looks complicated to me, all right?
Yeah.
So what we'd recommend is that you keep it super simple, and we really believe that you only need two knives, and that would be a good quality chef's knife, and then maybe something smaller that's known as a
paring knife.
Paring knife, okay.
Yeah,
so.
you use that for like fruits, if you're like cutting maybe like a peach or an apple, something like that. But even then, I mean, if you can't get a paring knife, it's no sweat.
Yeah.
Chef's knife is really all you
Is
need.
the main thing. Like
Yeah.
I was telling Delancey earlier, like 100% of my chopping in the kitchen
Yeah.
is with my chef knife. I've never used anything smaller, but some people may use it for smaller, tasks
It
or something like
depends,
that. Yeah. Cool. So I was telling Delancey the story about like the first time I had someone over and they were cutting open an avocado and they said, "Well, do you have a knife?" And I gave them my 10-inch, and they
Right.
were just like, it was like telescopic surgery trying to get that thing done. But all right, so very important to get a really good knife and something that you feel comfortable with. So we recommend going and choosing something in person and feeling that out. And to do that, you want to make sure that you hold the knife properly. All right, so what we recommend is most people, when they start out and they don't know how to hold a knife, and tell me if you agree, are either going to hold this kind of hammer grip,
Yeah,
right?
like the murder knife kind of thing.
Right. So
yeah, right.
with a fist around the handle, or
Yeah.
sometimes you'll see a lot of people put their finger on top of.
I used to do this all the time.
Yeah, on top of the back of the knife. What do you call
Right.
the back of the knife again? I forget.
Oh my gosh.
Sapatang. Anyway.
Anyway,
So
somewhere my chef is like
Yeah.
feeling it in the force. Delancey doesn't know.
yeah.
But yeah.
Anyway, that's not the way to hold it. The way that you want to hold it is what we call a pinch grip. So you're going to have your 3 fingers wrapped around the handle of the knife, and then you're going to pinch the knife right here, and so it should feel almost like an extension of your body.
Right, exactly.
So a pinch grip, right? And then you can see Delancey holding hers, and if you're listening to this, you can probably Google or YouTube pinch grip versus these other inappropriate grips.
Yeah, it's very simple, and once you get the hang of it, I mean, chopping and cutting becomes so much easier.
Yep.
You'll be surprised.
And it's very important to hold it properly simply because of the chopping and cutting and the different methods that we're going to talk about.
If you hold it and rest your finger on top, if you're putting a lot of pressure, I've had a lot of chefs tell me that, especially in culinary school, new chefs doing that, and they'll break their finger.
Yeah.
Your finger will break first before the knife does.
Yep.
So you want to hold it properly.
All right, so yeah.
Yeah, and then when it comes time to choose your knife, I think it's so important that you do it in person, and we always encourage that, especially at Sur La Table, because we liken trying out a knife to trying on a pair of shoes. Everyone's going to fit differently and uniquely, and it'll actually surprise you sometimes which knives work best for you. I mean, depending on weight, depending on the length of the knife, as well as its origin, it really is a very unique process.
Cool, yeah. So talking about origins, we have 2 main places that most knives come from as far as what professional chefs recommend.
Yeah.
And the first one is German-based knives. So the most popular are going to be Henkel's and Wusthoff's, correct? And there's probably some other ones out there, but these are things that are recommended by professional chefs, right? So the German knives tend to be thicker, they tend to be heavier and sturdier, and so men tend to prefer And I hope that's not usually too stereotypical, but
in
men
the
tend to
retail
prefer it.
space, that's what we would see all the time.
Okay, so they're kind of like brutally durable and bigger knives, right?
Yeah.
But again, this is why it's important to go kind of hold some different knives and feel it out for yourself, right? So the other popular knives that we have come from
Japan, actually. So we have Japanese knives as well. Personally, I use a Japanese knife myself. I use Global. We also have Miyabi and Shun as well. That's just what I hear Sur La Table all the time. Japanese knives are different from German knives in that they are lighter, they're more elegant, they're easier to maneuver, they're kind of like miniature samurai swords. The flip side of that though is they aren't as durable as German knives, so if you're a new chef, a lot of use and abuse, German knives tend to hold up easier and better than Japanese knives, but I mean, and generally in the retail space, we see women gravitate towards the Japanese knives just because they're lighter and they find that they're easier to maneuver.
Yep.
But once again, it just depends. You might surprise yourself.
Yeah, and then as far as like most of the people that are probably watching this, they're not professional chefs. Understanding the Global knives and the Japanese knives tend to be not as durable, but for the purposes of a normal person cooking in the kitchen, they're
like
going to be great.
Kitchen,
if they feel good.
Yeah, it won't. Yeah, the main thing is how you feel when you hold the knife. That's all that really matters.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And then as far as lengths go, in my personal opinion, and just when working with clients, I'm not a professional chef, but I feel pretty competent in the kitchen. I would recommend getting the longest knife that you feel comfortable with, because that will give you more versatility as far as like types of produce that you can cut through. You know, I definitely want something that I can cut through a head of cauliflower or a head of cabbage. You don't want something that's super short. So what is the size of your knife that you have here?
No, this one is a 7.5. This one works really well for me.
So here we have maybe one end of the spectrum, like, you know, like lighter, thinner.
Yeah. Well, and my height too. So I'm 5'3". So it depends on your height as well. We tend to see people who are a shorter stature, they're going to lean more towards the shorter knives because it's easier to maneuver. If you're taller, you're going to want a longer knife.
Yep. So the smallest knife you'd want to look at is a 6-inch, but 7-inch is doing great for Delancey, and she's a relatively smaller woman.
Yeah.
And then I have the biggest knife that I could find, which we just measured a while ago, and this is a 10-inch. All right, so another knife that I just want to bring up and recommend, because the price range for the Globals and the Henkels and the Wusthoffs tend to be around 100, 150. I mean, what are they?
Yeah, I think mine was like 100. I want to something around there. It can be intimidating. Yep. So, and if you want to try it out first,
it's an investment, but it's something that you can keep for almost a lifetime. I've had mine ever since I started eating real food, and that's been over 10 years now. So, so if you take care of your knives, you can keep. It's worth the investment. But another great quality beginner's knife is going to be what used to be Forstner, which is now known as Victorinox, and they take up a pretty solid beating. Like, they're really good knives, hold a good edge, and we've heard really good things from chefs about these. So those would be the 3 types of knives. German, within the German, we got the Wusthof and the Henkels, and then the Japanese knives, we've got the Global and the other 2 that you mentioned.
Miyabi and Shun.
Shun.
And then I would say with these knives with the that are cheaper, we usually recommend them for college students. So if you're in a dorm and you want to start practicing with some cutting skills, but you don't want to go so far as to get a Global or Shun, those would be a great recommendation. The Victorinox, you said?
Victorinox.
Victorinox.
Swedish, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no, they would be great for college students.
Cool, awesome. So let's talk just a little bit about sharpening, because when you get a good quality knife, one of the most important things is keeping it sharp, taking care of it so that it lasts your lifetime and it performs really well. So
so sharpening is a huge part of taking care of your knife, but a lot of people, especially when they're coming to Sur La Table, they would ask what kind of knife sharpener they need to get, and it's a little tricky because depending on where your knife is from, how the blade is angled, so on and so forth, that dictates the type of knife sharpener you should get. So you don't want to spend a lot of money on a knife sharpener and then it not work and it dull your knife instead. So especially if you're a newbie in the kitchen, what we recommend is getting a honing steel and honing your knife. And like Paul's going to show right now, honing your knife is a lot like filing your nails. It is creating a clean edge. You're smoothing out the edges. This will lead to a cleaner cut for a longer period of time. So think of honing as like filing your nails, whereas sharpening your knife is going to be like cutting your nails.
Cool.
So it's a little different. So you want to hone regularly in your home kitchen, and then at about the 6 to 9 month mark, you'll start to notice it's about time to get your knives sharpened. So either outsource it to a retailer like Sur La Table. They have great rates to sharpen knives, or you can ask a professional and find out which knife
type of sharpener to get.
Yeah,
or
which sharpener
like
is best for your knife.
Yep. So the honing process is going to keep your blade really sharp. So it's almost like sharpening, but it's not actually taking steel off the blade.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's keeping it sharp, and if you do that, I think it's recommended every 1 to 3 hours of work in the kitchen. So maybe after every time you use it. And we'll do a separate video on how to sharpen and hone, but you would just want to give it a couple of passes or a few passes on a honing steel every time you use your knife in the kitchen. And then, like Delancey said, maybe every 6 months, 9 to 9 months, when you notice that it's not keeping a good edge even after honing it, you'd want to take it in or just ask someone about like what's the best knife sharpener for this specific knife.
Yeah, so, super easy.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Also, I think it's good to talk about, I have a cutting board somewhere around here. Oh yeah. So, along with your good quality knife, you want to make sure that you have a cutting board. Now, same thing as with the knives where we were talking about, you want to get something that you feel comfortable with, but also that's the largest that you could feel comfortable with because you have a lot more versatility with it. With cutting boards, I'd say get the biggest cutting board that you can find for the most part. Yeah. Because, I see people all the time, bless their hearts, they come into this new real food realm and they get their little knives and they get these little cutting boards. They're these foldable, flimsy, flappy, or maybe like a little mini bamboo thing, and there's not a whole lot you can do on that cutting board. Right. So if you have something that has a decent size, you have a lot of space to work with. And I love this OXO carving board because it has these little rubber stops on both sides, and you can flip it. It's got these little grooves that will take some juice from some meats or something if by chance the meats have a lot of juice. Yeah. And it's odor resistant, easy to clean, and stores really easy too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we absolutely love this brand at Sur La Table. And then if you're somebody who has an allergy, if there's someone in your house where you're really concerned about cross-contamination, you can buy 1 or 2, and maybe one board is strictly for meats and the other one is strictly for produce, if need be. I mean, you don't have to, but if cross-contamination is a serious concern, like 2 boards is all you really need.
Cool. All right. Love it. All right. So, and let's talk about places to go, because we mentioned before you want to go in person holding that knife with a pinch grip and you want to feel the knives out. We mentioned that the German tend to lean more towards the men and then the Japanese more towards the women, but that's not universal. So where's a good place to go and check out knives in person? Well,
no surprise. I'm going to recommend Sur La Table. They have locations all throughout the country. We have 2 here in Las Vegas, I believe. The one in downtown Summerlin currently is a really great place to go because they do have the cooking classes there as well. They have a cutting station, and like I said, they really prioritize in training their employees and all of their kitchen assistants to be able to help find the right fit for you. So cool. I love Sur La Table.
So not only do you get to pick from some really good quality knives, you have expert advice on everything that we've been talking about here today.
Yes, we are thoroughly trained in brands and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, and then another good place would be, if you don't have access to Sur La Table, would be Bed Bath & Beyond. So they usually have a really good selection of knives. You might not get the expert advice, but at least when you're buying a knife, you can go hold them and feel them, and that would be a good place to go.
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I think that's everything that we needed to cover today. So just to summarize everything that we talked about, the most important piece of equipment that you can purchase for your real foodiness is going to be a really good quality chef's knife. If you want to add to that a paring knife, you can, but the majority of the work you'll do in the kitchen is going to be with a chef's knife. So it's worth the investment, and it's worth taking care of your knife and making sure that you keep it honed using a honing steel, asking expert advice for sharpening and how to sharpen your specific knife. And you're going to be very happy with the results from that. So, yeah, cool.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, good luck in the kitchen, everyone.
All right. We'll talk to y'all soon.